Hey there, welcome to another 5 Minute Friday. I'm Daniel. If you're interested in photography and technique and philosophy and stuff like that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And let's get into our subject for today. I had a question about color correction, CTO gels or attachments generally that come with flashes. How do you know which one to use? There's different levels of them sometimes. There's quarter, there's full, there's half. How do we know? Well, when you're looking at color correction gels, so primarily the ones people are using the most are your oranges and your blues. You can also, which correct the Kelvin temperature. I think most people will understand that. There's also the magenta and green correction gels, but I'm not going to talk about that right this second. What we're going to talk about is the warm and blue, the warming gels and the cooling gels, essentially. So if you are in a situation where let's say you go into a hall, you're shooting a wedding, and the light in there is warm. It's tungsten or it's warm fluorescent or it's whatever. It's not daylight, right? Which is what your flash is. The idea is that you're going to put this colored gel on your flash. It's orange, and it will warm the light of your flash to equal the light in the space. So how the heck do we know what the light is in the space? And how do we know which one to use? So I'll answer the second question first because that's the easiest. If you go to the gel manufacturers' websites, they will list exactly the amount of color temperature that a gel adjusts. So, like a full cut of CTO might bring you from 5500 to 3200 Kelvin, whereas a half might bring you from 55 to 48 or something. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on the 48 thing. I'm just off the top of my head. So you would know, like, okay, that's X number of degrees, right? And they do stack, right? So if you stack them on top of each other, so what you can do is you can be like, okay, well, the room is, 4,500, so I'm going to need a half and also an eighth, and that will get me to 4,500. Now, how do I know that? Because the manufacturer will list that how many degrees of Kelvin it adjusts, both for the blues and the oranges. Now, how do you know what the light's like in the space, right? I think that's more the question. So there's a few ways to do this. Um, One way you could do it, and it depends on how exacting you need to be. Um, the simplest way, of course, but the most expensive, is to have a color meter. A color meter will allow you to, just like a light meter, will allow you to get the color of the space. What's nice about a color meter is it will give you also the compensation in magenta and or green and stuff like that. So if you're really trying to do color precise stuff, like you're photographing artwork and those kind of things, the color meter is super useful. But for most of us in our general use of photography, it's an expensive tool. That was a lot of words that came out all at once. It's an expensive tool that isn't necessary for our work. The other way to do it, there's a couple of simpler ways. Number one, if you're using a mirrorless camera, especially, and you're used to how it looks and how things work, usually not the screen on the back because your eye might be corrupted by it. But looking through the viewfinder, just hold the camera up and look through the viewfinder and adjust your Kelvin temperature on the camera until it looks right. Then look at that number, and let's say you're standing in the space and okay, oh, it looks really warm in here. You adjust down, and okay, it's 2700. Okay, well, now we know 2700 is what you're going to want to shoot at to make it look the way you want it. So how much gels do I need? Again, the manufacturer's site lists how much each does, so you can add them up as needed. Like most things, this is really, in most cases, it's going to be to taste. In other words, like if you're an event photographer, you're going to decide how neutral you want that space to be. Personally, I like to leave spaces a bit warmer than my flash. So for me, I would probably, if it was 27 or whatever, I might not compensate all the ways down. I might only go to like 32 to let the space stay a little bit warm. But again, that comes down to your style and how you like to do things. The other way to do it, which is a little bit more complicated, but maybe more exacting, would be to, if you're tethered, right, you could shoot a color correction target, like a neutral target, and then look at, hit the dropper and see what it corrects to. And that should also give you a pretty good space. And again, you all this stuff, if that's not clear, if it wasn't clear how I said it, you don't want to have the flash turned on when you're doing this. In both cases, you want to just get the ambient light, right? You're going to get the ambient light. You're going to figure out what color temperature it is. Then you're going to look at your reference. Maybe if you're using these gels a lot and you don't have them memorized, go to the website, print out the numbers that you need. Maybe write them on the gels even. That's not a bad idea. and add the number of gels, you know, that you a number of gels that you need to get you down to where you want to be. Set your camera at the color temperature, put the gels on the flash, and the rest is golden. If you're using TTL, it will compensate right through it. If you're not using TTL and using manual flash, make sure that you compensate power-wise. And also the gel manufacturers tell you how much power each gel eats, so it should be easy enough for you to look that up. Looks like I'm a little over 5 minutes already. I will see you next Friday, guys. Have a great weekend.